Hello, everybody. It's Matt here from NoBossNinja.com. This is going to be a non-scripted check-in because I've been really busy all day. I'm going to tell you all about my life as a nomad. Not in the strict sense. I was not like wandering the desert, although I did spend a night or two in the Sahara Desert at one point. But I went through an interesting phase. About a year ago, I decided I had this really nice condo in downtown Austin. It was the type of place where people would come over and they would be like, "Wow, you have such an amazing view." It was really nice. The view especially was just, I think it was the best view in the city. It had like this panorama of the city, and the sunsets were brilliant. I mean, if you've ever been to Austin, we're famous for our bats. So the bats would like fly up at night against the sunset. Man, I'm sad just thinking about it. So I realized though, when I had always wanted a place like that. And when I finally got to the point where I could afford it, I moved in and I realized, hey, this is interesting. I am still totally miserable. Not totally miserable. That's an exaggeration, but I'm still myself here. Nothing has changed. And that was a kind of a cool realization. It was a sad realization, but it's interesting. You know, I've heard rich people say that they wish everyone could be rich so that they could realize, hey, this doesn't make you happy. And I don't know, I wouldn't consider myself rich, but I definitely got to a place where when people came over, they were impressed. So I don't know, that says something, right? So I realized, okay, this physical stuff, it's not really making me happy. It's cool. I have nothing against it. I think it's great. But I decided, okay, I'm going to try the other side of this. I'm going to try almost the kind of minimalistic way of living, or whatever you might call it. If you are a minimalist, don't get mad at me because I'm using that term incorrectly. But I went through a major downgrade. So I sold pretty much everything I own. I kept my car, but I sold like everything that was in my condo. I've never been a super physicalistic person in terms of like having tons of nice clothes and stuff. My friends will tell you that they have to like drag me to go shopping. So that wasn't really an issue. But just kind of like selling a lot of my books and selling my belongings was an interesting psychological process because it was just weird to kind of give up that stuff that I had spent decades having around me. So that was interesting for me and difficult in many ways. And I kept doing that until I had pretty much what I could fit into my car. I have businesses in Austin, so the plan wasn't to just like move outside of Austin, right? But the plan was to just see if I could live without an actual physical residence. Now, that's kind of a half-truth because I had a place I could sleep. One of my businesses at the time was located in a house, so there was a shower and stuff, so there was a place I could go to crash, but it definitely wasn't a place that I could like call my home by any stretch of the imagination, because there would be people there during the day. Like there was no privacy or anything, but it would be a place where in last resort I could go crash there. So the plan was to kind of travel the world, try out different approaches to life, and live sort of this more nomadic or minimalistic or whatever you'd want to call it lifestyle. And I moved out of that nice condo and I started. And it was an interesting experience. I learned a lot from it. I traveled everywhere. I was in places like, I was in Latin America several times. I was in Morocco, in the Sahara Desert, in Spain, in Portugal. I was all over the place. And there were times where I'd be gone for several weeks at a time. I'd have enough in place here where the businesses can sort of run themselves, or I can check in remotely. And I learned from that experience, well, what did I learn? Well, I learned that there is a romanticized notion of doing that sort of thing, and then there's the real world, and like many things, it's a mixture of both. So the romanticized notion is you can be this free spirit, you can travel the world, and you're just so happy doing that. And maybe for some people that's true, but for me, after a while, I started to get a little bit lonely. I started to miss having a center, like a place that I could come back to. And even with like minor stuff, like say I would just want to have a cup of coffee alone in my house, like I couldn't do that. I was always around people, and I'm reclusive by nature, so that was tough for me sometimes. But especially if I would be in a foreign country for a couple weeks, sometimes I just start to feel like I was without center, without any sort of grounding. And some people, you might think, oh, poor Matt, like, he's traveling the world and having adventures, like poor him that he's not grounded. But it's an interesting psychological experience, and I think that it's interesting that I think humans might be a little bit wired to want that sort of grounded feel. So after a while, I started to want a place to come home to. It was amazing, some of the things. I mean, there was a time where I spent a month in Colombia. If you know me, you know I absolutely love going down to Colombia. And I spent a month there just kind of living, seeing what that lifestyle would be like. And I think I'll probably do that again. But after a few weeks, you just start to realize, okay, I'm the same person. Like, I'm in a different country. I'm doing cool things. I get to like tell my friends, oh, check out this picture of wherever the heck I am. But it's still me. And you start to just feel a little bit ungrounded. I started to wish I hadn't sold so many of my books, things like that. So after that wrapped up, like I came back, and I'm in Austin now. I was never destitute. I mean, this was not for financial reasons. It was more of a life experience, so there's absolutely no reason to feel bad for me. And I realized I just needed some sort of grounding. So I have a house now. I have books again. I have a bookshelf. I did put some of my stuff in storage. And I guess that the lesson to be learned is, if you try these little experiments, don't go too far. Like, you might have a romantic version in your head of what it's going to be like, but the real world might be a little bit different. So I think it was amazing to be free and to be able to travel around and stuff like that. But there was also the real world factor of like being lonely, of not having a place that was my own, of not feeling grounded. So when you try these little life experiments, it's worth just like doing it for a month or two, because you don't always know if it's going to work out or not. And it's better to not burn all your bridges. It's better to just try something out. So yeah, that's what I learned from being a nomad. I hope that's helpful. I know it's a little off topic because I normally talk about business stuff, but in a sense, this is business related, just because I want this channel, I want these podcasts to be something about how you can use your business to have the type of life you want. And part of that is just experimenting with the type of life that you want. So I'll continue to travel. I will continue to go around the world. I'll continue to spend many weeks outside of Austin at a time. I don't think that's ever going to stop. But I think I'm always going to need some sort of home base that I can come back to. So that's the end of my experiment, being a nomad. All right, I hope you liked this. I put out content every day, so if you're watching on YouTube, please make sure you subscribe and give this a like. That really means a lot to me, actually, because it helps me get videos out on YouTube. And if you are also on YouTube, make sure you click the bell, because since I put out content every day, you'll get an update if you want to just sit here and watch me talk about whatever's on my mind. And if you're listening to this in audio form, if you're on a podcast, you can subscribe to the podcast, and I hope that you will listen as well. If you're watching, I'll put videos. I'll try to show you. I'm going to put videos right about here in just a few seconds, so you can check some of those other videos out. A lot of times what I talk about is business-related stuff, how to run a business, but then also just lifestyle-related stuff, and how to design a lifestyle that you really enjoy, that you really love. And a lot of this channel is just what I've talked about today, like getting away from the romantic version of things and getting into the real world version of things, because it's in the real world where you can really have that life that you like. So, I'm not on a jet tarmac trying to sell you some get rich quick course, and I'm not going to tell you that you should sell everything and go travel the world and be free and happy because that's the solution to all your woes. So I think that there's a lot of real world in there, but that doesn't mean that you can't be happy. All right, everybody. So thanks for listening to my unscripted talking about being a nomad, and I'm going to see you tomorrow.